Four, please, on the pod from Connecticut, Stephie Smalls. And on the pod from Honolulu, Hawaii, Reid Fowler. I got two betting experts on here to get us ready for the U.S. Open. Pretty self-explanatory there. Is Scottie Scheffler the play? Is there any value on Scottie Scheffler? Who should you be looking at for the U.S. Open? Who should you be looking at for your top tens? Who should you be looking at for your just make the cut bets? We talk about all of that coming up here on Eyes on Golf. It is U.S. Open week, so I had to bring in some of the big bettors out here to get the job done for us. For this U.S. Open betting preview, we have Stephie Smalls, the host of the Stephie Smalls Show on YouTube. Stephie, welcome in.
Thanks for having me. Always exciting. I can't believe we're on our third major already. That went by very quickly.
It was different, right? 2014. It was different in the past editions of Pinehurst No. 2. And then we have a host from PGA Tour Live, and you might have seen his astute betting work in the golf space. We started working together on DraftKings together on the Sweat back in the day, and then on Amazon Prime. Reid Fowler is here with us. Good morning, Reid. We're taping this on Tuesday morning.
Yeah, good morning, Jeff. We were talking earlier, and Stephie has a weird name because really in person she's about 6'5", or at least that's like her persona on X, on Twitter. Don't call it X, it's Twitter, okay? It's Twitter. But yeah, I'm super excited because love following Stephie, love following Jeff. Jeff and I actually worked together the last time at the RBC Canadian, and if you can get the BTS, because I know you love a BTS, Jeff. Stephie, this guy had tripods in the studio. He had cowboy boots, a cowboy hat. He had hockey sticks. He had his hockey jersey, the Rangers jersey. This guy goes all in. So I'm just happy to be here, Jeff. I'm happy to be part of the Eisenbahn world because it's a wild one.
I think I'm Johnson Wagner light, Reid, at this point. I'm
you duffing some chips too as well on live.
I can do that if we need to do that, but. Yeah, I was. I had a lot of props working for that RBC Canadian Open, and we're going to talk some props, some prop bets, perhaps some other bets, because obviously this is one of the most bet on weeks in golf, and it's also, there are some straightforward aspects of this with the way that Scottie Scheffler is playing, and then there are some, more dynamic bets to be talked about. So let's start, Reid. I'll start with you just about Pinehurst right now. What skills are we looking for? Because there's a debate, right? There's a debate of, do you need the correct approach play to avoid the undulation of these greens, or will the players who can recover with their short game and their putting be the ones who succeed? So what are you looking for here?
Yeah, I think the answer, Jeff, is yes. Yes to everything. Because, right, it's a major. And you can look at the key stats. So, I mean, if you're just looking at stats and you're really diving into the models and you want to see the numbers, then yeah, like tee to green is obviously the one that you can always say is the most prominent. And when I've been doing this for a while, and you're always like, yeah, strokes gain approach is the most important. It's the most important every single week, right? You talk to some of the guys that we work with, they're like, yeah, if you don't hit your irons well, if you don't hit these fairways, you're gonna be in a lot of trouble. And that's the one thing that I would say, like outside of like the main strokes gain approach, tee to green, off the tee. One thing that I would focus on too is par 5, like strokes gain par 5, right? And what I mean by that, even though there's only 2 on this course, there's so many par 4s that are over 450 yards. It's super long. It's a par 70. I think it's over 7,500 yards. So par 5 scoring, right? Because most of these holes for the members or for just the public, these par 4s, they play as par 5s. The pros obviously aren't like us regular plebes. They're superheroes when it comes to this kind of stuff. But I love par 5 scoring because I love to see the guys who can get into these greens, these 480-yard par 4s with relative ease, right? The Hidekis of the world, the Victor Hovlands. I'm sure Steph is going to talk about her boy Max Homa, who's great at these long irons, who's accurate with these long irons. But the one that's less quantitative is patience. You're going to make a bogey, right? You're going to make bogeys at a U.S. Open. And specifically here, because we're not going to get any weather from what we've gotten like the last 7 majors. We've had wet, like rain or wetness before or during a major. It looks like that's not going to be the case. And so you're going to need to be patient because, like you mentioned, these greens are diabolical. So that's the other one is patience. If you don't have that, you ain't winning.
Stephie, do you echo that? Because we go back to 2014, right? We think about Martin Keimer, putter, everywhere he was. What do you expect out of Pinehurst #2 this year?
Yeah, I think your demeanor and your patience is a really, really big deal. Like, I'm so glad that you brought that up. I think also just being a creative golfer, having good course strategy. We even saw some guys, last week get a little upset, Morikawa lose their cool a little bit, and you see how that kind of throws you off. And unfortunately, well, fortunately for us because we get to watch it and bet on it, but there's a lot of unpredictability about this course. There's going to be a lot of very unpredictable shots. The only thing I would like really add, I think, is just like good drive percentage, like total good driving, because being able to find these fairways, you have to have controlled length off the tee. So putting yourself in a good spot, for that next shot, I think is really important here. If you're spraying all over the place, you might be having a couple bad days.
And there's a lot of conversation about you get offline, you get off of your target here. There's not the rough that there was in 1999, 2005. There's sort of those sandy waste areas. But on top of that, there's just random patches of grass that people are going to have to deal with. There's definitely a randomness off the course. I want to, Stephie, just sticking with you before we get into picks. When you look at a U.S. Open and how difficult U.S. Open courses play, what would you recommend to bettors? Where are you looking for value that you're not looking for on a regular PGA Tour event?
Yeah, I think it's interesting too, because, we have now this Scottie Scheffler involved. So you kind of have to approach it in a different way. And I think for a while, it was hard to bet those without Scottie markets because you feel like you're losing value. But right now, week to week, he is the number one golfer in the world. And I think there is still some value there, especially this week. I was surprised. I think if there's a guy that you want to bet outright and you're okay losing a little bit, like I'm okay with people taking the without Scottie markets. I know not everyone doesn't feel exactly the same way, but I think also looking at these placement markets, instead of throwing yourself all over the board, you see these cards online, it's like 9, 10, 11 golfers. I think you might be better off, managing your bankroll a little bit with some placement bets instead of just spraying all over the board.
Yeah, Reid, it's incredible. I mean, you look at Xander Schauffele is plus 1,000 on FanDuel with Scottie, plus 750 without Scottie. And then there's a whole other FanDuel, for example, has its own winner without Scottie Scheffler, Xander Schauffele, Colin Morikawa, and Rory McIlroy. When you're looking at this board, where do your eyes just go in terms of, like Stephie said, it's a different animal with the way that Scottie's playing right now?
First off, this is like Stephie probably got 8 hours of sleep. She probably got a good breakfast in. This is not the Stephie that I know online. Okay. Because Stephie online would be like fire at will. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, she's right. Like it's so weird though, right? Because if you've been watching golf for a long time, there's always these comparisons. You get into every sport. LeBron, Jordan, right? Like Sidney Crosby, Gretzky, you get them all. And you're like, Scottie Scheffler, is he Tiger? Is he the next Tiger? But you don't really want to believe it, right? Because Tiger is this idol in golf that no one could ever touch. And I'm sure the Jack Nicklaus, right, demographic is like, no one's going to be Jack Nicklaus. So now Scottie is in that range. And so do you think that it's worth like betting a market without Scottie? Yeah, like any market, right? You want to see where the value is. If you take away Scottie, who's got so much win equity in everything, right? His short game is the best. And that's really what you need here because he didn't miss his greens. His putting is fantastic. His bounce back stats are fantastic. Like, what's his downfall? Like, his only downfall is himself, right? Like, that's the only thing that's going to get in his way. I was about to go there, but I don't know who your fan base is. I don't know the eyes on golf. I don't know what eyes are on golf.
I feel like I'm getting like held back here with that, and like you said, Stephie, maybe clean up for a family show here.
Right. Eyes on golf is PG. Okay,
I can just hit that explicit button. Yeah,
right. It's not ESPN++. But like to your guys' point, it's I think the value where you want to find value, right, is, and like you mentioned before, I forget, you mentioned like those native areas and there's just like random weeds and patches of grass. You kind of need to get lucky too, right? Not to get right behind one of those things, but
Mhm.
like the value in my mind is finding those guys like anything, right? This is a market. And what I've really tried to focus on this year is, okay, who are these blue chip golfers? Like in any market, like in the stock market and equities, what are these blue chips that we know who perform well, who have the experience and won't get down on themselves
Mhm.
if they get a bogey? Now, granted, I bet the Gala already. I've already bet Finau. I've bet like the greatest hits. Like I'm because if those guys win and I don't have anything on them, I will be extremely angry with myself because I've spent a good mortgage on those guys losing
Yeah.
every single week. But I digress. The like someone like Patrick Cantlay, even though he's playing like hot garbage
Yeah.
this year, he is 60 to 1 plus 6,000, however you want to look at it, right? Yes, he's not playing well, so you kind of have to give away current form. But at the same time, like Steph, we were talking about it earlier before we started recording. Jason Day is at 100 to 1, right? There's other guys that we'll get to in a little bit. That's where I really want to find value because in these markets, right, especially at the majors and especially with Scottie playing the way he is, if you
Mhm.
want to allocate 50% of your budget to Scottie at 3 to 1, like no one's going to fault you for that. But if you want some risk, if you want to play a little bit off of that, then yeah, I think there's guys down the line that are down the market who have slid quite a bit because of their golf that you could find value on.
We are talking Tuesday morning. I'm looking at Twitter right now. James Colgan's reporting Tiger Woods is talking about the greens, saying, I foresee watching guys play ping pong. John Rahm is walking around with one sandal on right now, talking about how he has a lesion perhaps in his foot. So there's a lot going on the ground. But I want to get into some picks. I want to start macro. Maybe this is the wrong way to start a betting podcast, but I feel like to avoid tiptoeing around anything, I'm just going to go right into it. With Scottie, who are your picks? Who's your pick? Is it Scottie or is it the field, basically? Stephie.
Yeah, Steffi, you go first because I want to go off of what you say.
I have a very hard time believing that one, Scottie won't be in contention. And then everything about him too. Like I joke about like the strokes gained off the course too. It's just like, oh, it's going to be Father's Day. It's his first
Oh,
Sunday
yeah, you're
playing.
right.
He's a new dad. And, he has all these gains off of the course that it makes it really hard. I have only placed 2 outright so far. One of those is Cam Smith and the other is the Gala as well. I'm looking at adding probably, I don't know, that 11 to 1 on Xander. I can't get there. Bryson, I think, is where I will end up landing. It's unfortunate because he's starting to get so popular. And I think he is like having him in contention is really good for golf. It was a blast to watch him. He's one of 4 guys that has posted a top 10 in every major thus far. And I kind of talked about earlier, like that course strategy, like he's definitely a type of guy that can use that to his advantage. His ball striking has been good lately. We saw him 3rd in strokes gained tee to green last month at Valhalla, 6 strokes gained around the green at the PGA Championship, and he's number 1 in good drive percentage. Like talk about a guy that if he's keeping it in the fairway with that distance, he's going to put himself in some really nice spots. Is he going to be able to capitalize that? We'll see. He had a second at the PGA. Hasn't done great at US Open since he won here in 2020, but I think he's someone that you can continue to ride the wave. I think that the form is there too, so I feel a little bit more comfortable taking someone like that. But I think that's maybe where I end up going after my 2 a little bit longer of shots, depending on what you consider a long shot.
So, Reid, that doesn't, if you take away the odds, I'm taking Scottie Scheffler. I'm not thinking twice about that right now. Steffi, that's a much more dynamic answer. Are you taking Scottie or the field, Reid? And I'm still looking for a good Scottie versus the field bet out there.
You probably have to do it like head to head, like heads up with someone like not on the book if you want like Scottie, and then give someone like just horrible odds, right? Like so, yeah, you're not going to find it anywhere because books don't want that liability. I mean, these are Tiger numbers. He's 3 to 1.
But they had, Vegas had Tiger versus the field back in the day.
True, but this is before really golf betting got to where it is now, right? The exposure with full swing, with now all of these with Jordan Spieth being on FanDuel, with Bryson, pre-live being with DraftKings, being with us. Like this is well before golf is where it is now, or just sports in general and sports betting. So, and like the handles that you see in golf too have really increased over the last couple of years. And so the liability, if they hang up a Scotty versus the field, like I get it. Like it'd be fine, right? Because obviously you pick the field because the odds are greater than like just one person winning. But what Scotty has done is wild. Having said that, I will never bet a golfer for like pre-tournament at these short odds. I can't. It's like not in my blood. I can't do it. Even though every other bet I make is stupid, when you consider what Scotty is doing, it's just in my mind. 3-1 is just no value whatsoever. So I'm always trying to find the value. This is going to sound really weird and sound pretty stupid, but I'd rather make a bad bet with good value than a good bet with bad value.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
I'd rather wait for Scotty to like slip up maybe
exactly
the first round and then try and get the plus 500. Like I would almost rather
exactly.
just wait for him to be down and oh well, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But I can't stomach taking just one golfer. And I'm sure it's popular if you don't watch golf, you don't bet on golf that much. But like for us, it makes me like a little sick. Like I can't get there. But I'd rather see him maybe have like a poor round one. He's a type of guy who can come from behind, so it doesn't matter. So maybe he gets to. I think last week he got to who knows whatever. But yeah, if he gets to plus 600, plus 750. Even a 10-1, like now we're talking. Now I'm all in.
Now we're cooking with gas. If we get 10-1, that's like getting like 100-1 on someone who's like 3 back. Yeah. But it's exactly right. Stephie hit the nail on the head there. You want to wait because like this was again stupid. Here's a prime example of what I just said. Stupid bet, good value, air quotes. Sunday, Scottie Scheffler was 350-1 at the PGA Championship. Right, and I thought to myself, okay, is it out of it's more. It'll be more out of the realm of possibility for Scotty to shoot 1 under today than like 10 under. And if he shoots 10 under and Xanders, like he usually would, but he didn't. But if Xanders and people come back, Scotty, all he needs to do is shoot a 60, 61, and he's relatively in contention. And he was 350-1. Now, granted, he bogeyed the first hole and it was gone, but he still shot like 8 under par, right? So Stephie's exactly right. You can always do the live betting, which is something that a lot of people should really focus on and get into, and then matchups round 2. But we're talking outrights, like I mentioned. And this is also to what style of bettor you are. If you're looking at making money, a professional bettor, then yeah, you're not going to just scatter shot all across the board. You're probably not going to go triple digits. You're probably going to stay with the props and derivatives, like a top 20, top 10s. But like that's not, I want to have fun when I bet too. I want to root for the guys that I usually root for. So Sahith, like I mentioned, is on the card. Just because, like I said, if he wins and I don't have any exposure to him, it's going to be really bad. Finau's on the card. Max Homa is on the card because who doesn't love Max Homa? Like, dad power, like on Father's Day, like Max Homa is our father. Like that's who he is.
Yeah.
I think Stephie told me that on Twitter, like Homa's our father. Yeah, Homa is dad. Like
I'm really
Swiftie
going after the
mom.
Dad angle for sure this week. Like
right, exactly.
That narrative as much as possible. Like even
right, exactly.
Like the way his dad follows him around, like, and I've always felt like, especially Thigala, like he's someone that I've always felt like his big win is going to be at exactly this. It's going to be a very tough, very difficult course. And he's started to get like more comfortable in these fields, and he's playing good golf right now too, on top of it. Yeah. So I love it. Like I got that earlier. It was like 75-1. It's down to 50-1, but Beautiful. Like I bet it again. Like he's someone that I will always want to root for.
Exactly. Just go ahead, Jeff.
Just to step in with some of the numbers here that you guys are talking about. Scottie Scheffler on DraftKings and FanDuel right now is plus 300 straight up. So I still think, Reid, if John Rahm shows up at the Mexico Open at Vedanta one day, you'll bet the chalk. But I understand, what we're all saying about how those odds are just you're straying away from those. Scotty's also on DraftKings right now minus 125, minus 250 for top 5 or top 10. He's the only player with minus odds for both of those two categories. You mentioned a lot of Sahith Theegala, who's at plus 5,000. I'm going to push back on that because I just wonder about a U.S. Open for Sahith Theegala, who has had some trouble spraying golf balls off the tee. And at a course like Pinehurst, when he is out of position with long irons from bad positions over and over again, I would get nervous putting money on Sahith Theegala this week. You want to throw out Augusta You want to throw out a PGA? Even I would love to see Sahith at an Open Championship, because when you look at the player profile, a guy that a lot of times Sahith Theegala will be compared to is Jordan Spieth. And you look at where Jordan Spieth has had success in terms of the creativity. You look at what those guys were right there with Chris Kirk earlier this year at the Century. Reid, you're perking up, but what I'm saying to me checks out as stay away at Pinehurst.
Yeah. So okay, this is a great example of like your eyes tricking you, right? And I mean, obviously, we watch golf, we watch Sahith specifically, and you're like, oh my god, he is 500 yards off to the right. Like, what is this guy doing? But what does he do? The same way Spieth has so much experience recovering, he just finds a way. And look, I get it, right? I get what you're saying. You want your money, you want to be comfortable. That's why, like, it's like investing in crypto a little bit and investing in like equities a touch, right? Not truly, but like you want a little bit more risk. And that's why we're getting a 50 to 60 number on someone truly who shouldn't be that number. And here's the reason why. He's playing well at different styles of golf courses. You mentioned Century, he was runner up there, right? It's just a bomb and gouge, birdie fest. And then you look down the line, 12th last week at Memorial. Yeah, he missed the cut at the RBC Canadian, but he just didn't have it. 12th at the PGA Championship, 2nd at RBC Heritage, 6th at the API, 9th at Players. This is a guy that, to your point, Jeff, has sprayed it everywhere, but his short game is getting a lot better. He's gaining strokes on the greens, and that's the big important number there, is that he's gaining 5th at W at the Waste Management. So he's having a really good year. And if he wasn't Sahith and he wasn't young, and it wasn't like, oh, we need this guy to perform well at a course like this, mind you, too, you can get lucky. I mean, how many times do we see Jordan Spieth get like the lucky strokes gain? I think Feinberg says this, like strokes gain lucky beans. Like you just need to get lucky for a couple of those wayward shots and then momentum, right? That pushes you. Granted, will he be there as much as Morikawa or Xander? Probably not, but you're also not getting, you're getting a fifth of the odds, right? Are Morikawa and Xander, those guys, 5 times more likely to win this golf tournament over Sahith? Maybe you can make an argument, but I would argue it's more like 2.5, 3 times. And so that's what I mean. Finding value. If he was 40 to 1, I'd be with you.
Yep, that makes sense from a value standpoint. Stephie, you want to step in there with any other point to make the case for Sahith?
No, I don't think so. I think that you nailed it. I just think his ball striking too. Yeah, it's just this comfortability he's getting like in like these tough spots. And I think he does have that creativity, which you're going to need. So if he does spray, I kind of feel a little bit more comfortable than say some of the guys in his in the range there too. Like again, also been betting on him quite a bit. I'm not going to stop now. At some point, I need to see my investment return. It's 50 to 1, 75 to 1, whenever you bet it. I don't know. I can't quit him.
Understood. And we will see Jordan Spieth, by the way, T17 at the 2014 U.S. Open. So again, if you want to stick with that profile, he did perform. Young Spieth 10 years ago came in T17 here with his 2 worst rounds on the weekend. Just I didn't really get one pick. I just want to hear one pick without Scottie from each of you to win. Stephie.
Sure. I mentioned Bryson a little bit. I like Cam Smith.
Okay.
I think, he's not the most accurate off the tee. I know that. I think he also can, find fairways, not always using a driver on this course. His short game is obviously extremely elite. He was 4th here last year. If you like to look at 2014, there was 2 Australians in the top 10 too, and he's Australian. I think there's a lot to like there about what they're used to and comfortable playing at. You're going to see a lot of that at this course. He's not playing great on live. Like that's going to be.
I was going to say this is the same Cam Smith. Just I'm checking here that shot an 80 at Live Golf Houston a few days ago.
Just naysaying all over the place.
T48.
But he has played well at majors, and I think he's the type of guy, like we've seen these guys go to Live, and I just think he was playing golf, and then he comes and he competes, and maybe he doesn't care as much. I don't know. There's something to it here. He's still, you look at the last, 24 months and 8 major championship rounds. He leads in strokes gained around the green. Like he comes to the majors and he plays well.
He does. He's at plus 4,000. Reid, who's your pick without Scottie? Without
It's
Scottie, as in, I want
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
odds on the big board. Yeah.
It's going to be Nick Dunlap. No, actually, yeah, he's actually some value. He's playing well, actually. So I know I've jumped around a lot, but man, Rory McIlroy right now is, if it wasn't for Scottie, like Rory would definitely be in the running for Player of the Year just because of what he's doing. He's right there, even though a lot of the personal stuff is like, it's in the ether right now. I'll leave that to Eyes on Golf to talk about
Well,
that.
yeah, maybe playing well since then, but that's neither here
Yeah,
nor there. Go on,
right,
Reid.
right, right. But I love Rory. I love Rory quite a bit. But if there's one golfer, there's one, for the love of God, and I mean pun intended, Tommy Fleetwood.
Oh my
Just
god.
one time, Tommy. That's all you need. You just need one shot at this, and you will make so many people happy, including myself. So Fleet God, I'm putting him in that without Scottie. He's going to be my guy.
So interesting here. Rory is plus 1,100 straight up on DraftKings. Winner without Scottie. I just told you all that on FanDuel, Xander Schauffele plus 750, Rory plus 900. On DraftKings, they're both plus 900. So on DraftKings right now, Rory and Xander with the same without Scottie odds. You bring up Tommy Fleetwood, who without Scottie Scheffler, I do have to scroll
It's probably they're like
plus
25.
2,800,
Yeah.
and then plus 3,500 straight up. I have a lot of Tommy as we continue this conversation, as someone who has obviously been around the hoop in majors, gets the job done with his ball striking, fits a lot here. The guy who I'm putting in my winner, if I can't take Scottie, the winner that I'm taking is Colin Morikawa at plus 1,600. And that's maybe a touch chalky, but at the same time, we just saw Xander, right, at the PGA the week before at Wells Fargo, couldn't get it done against Rory. Well, would this guy be able to rebound the next week and played the best week of golf that he's played? Colin Morikawa is looking much more like that guy from a few years ago. Colin Morikawa, I talked about FanDuel having a market right now that's winner without Scottie, Rory, Xander, and Colin. Like that is the analytics will tell you that Colin is right there. The analytics and everything will tell you Colin has performed at a higher level at majors than elsewhere. And that when it comes to ball striking and a lot of what we're talking about, if you want to find a guy who's going to hit green after green after green, fairway after fairway after fairway at Pinehurst, Colin Morikawa is a guy on the list. So that's where I'm looking. How about some other value picks? You both went down the board a little bit. Reid, is there anyone else that we're missing as we go to that mid-range?
Oh, the mid-range? Oh no, I got some triple dig. We'll get to that in a little bit.
Well, all right, let's talk about value and sleepers at the same time here.
Okay. Look, value, like I mentioned, like Fleet was there at 40 plus 4,000. I don't think that's value. I think, like we were talking about earlier, if you got Sahith earlier, what's great about the majors is you can place these bets at any point in the year, right? So I'm going to go from way deep and then bring it back, Jeff. So back in December, I put a bet on Russell Henley at 190 to 1.
Oh my God.
I think he's down to like 90 to 1 now. And the reason being is you mentioned fairways and greens, right? Just the pick and axes and the gold rush, fairways and greens, fairways and greens. And that's what Russell Henley does. Would any of us be surprised if we wake up on like a Saturday after a night out and all of a sudden Henley is like, 3 under through like 6? No, we wouldn't. Like I've seen that. I've been there. I'm like, God damn, why didn't I bet Russell Henley at these stupid numbers? Because he's always there showing up. Is he still valued at 90 to 1? I think so. So I love Russell Henley there.
You know those like charts that they have, like memes people post where they're like, talent is like the bar's all the way up and it's recognition low. I always say Russell Henley. That's Russell Henley to a T.
Yeah.
And like he's gonna wear like his dad. Talk about dad energy. That is like dad energy to a T. Guy's got khakis. He's probably got Skechers on. He's probably Kuchar light when it comes to his outfit. His shirts are too big for him. But exactly, he's got like the whatever those new shoes are that Faldo's always pushing on Golf Channel. But like Henley's
Squirts.
always squares, whatever they're called. Henley's always there. So I love him quite a bit. And like we mentioned, like we were talking about, Steph and I were kind of mentioning this before we came on. Jason Day, if you can get him at 100 to 1, like I just think that what he's doing right now, his experience, right? That's going to be massive. Talk about around the green. Who's better than J Day? If you don't want to take the outrights, then go to the derivatives, right? The top 10s, top 20s. That's where you're going to see a lot of these values for these guys who are at longer odds. You're going to see them at like 12-1 for a top 5, or 8-1 for a top 10. So love those guys. But yeah, can't lay at 60-1. I can't get off of that.
I like the can't lay play. I'm looking at Pinehurst weather. We're talking about Jason Day rolling out in a lot of fabric at 90 degrees. Just, I feel like we're seeing Malbon pull back. It feels like they're rolling out some of the athletic attire now. It's like there starts to be a little bit more of a tailored fit, but I don't
know, but I love Malbon. They're Filipino owned. So I got a shout out to my Filipino brethren. So, but at the same time, just those baggy, like, come on, man. It's like, also, by the way, do you know that like people can figure out if you're like a millennial, like older, if you're born in the 80s or 90s, or not, just based on your socks? I just found this out like 2 days ago, by the way.
Really?
If you're above the ankle, you're like in your 20s. If you're below the ankle, then you're like in your 30s, pushing 40. Feel it like ankle socks.
T4 for Jason Day at Pinehurst in 2014. Probably with different socks than he's wearing now, but
we don't know, though.
Jason did perform at a high level there. Stephie, where are your sleepers and value picks in here?
I think moving down the board, I'm even just looking now, because honestly, for these majors, I'll sprinkle a little bit on some of these guys, but you look still in that range. I think Tom Kim probably piques my interest a little bit with the way he's been playing, but that'll probably end up being a top 10 play for me. Seabez quietly playing very well, 120-1, if you want to get crazy. I think that's really all that stands out. Henley would have been the one for me, Keegan Bradley, but kind of fell apart. I'm not a Corey Connors person, but he's playing good golf right now. I just can't bet him there. I don't care if it's 90-1. I don't care what it is. I'd much rather have like a Sepp Straka a little bit shorter than him.
So I'm going to throw this out to you, Jeff and Steph. Sorry I'm taking the reins here, but I want to get your guys' thoughts because I already bet him. But you spoke about Australians. Min-Woo Lee.
Yes.
I think he's at 80-1 right now.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? Because I think he's right in terms of when you look at, the recent form, course fit, got the distance. He's really good around the greens. Thoughts?
So I'll tell you my thought. And by the way, Min-Woo Lee, how about this, Stephie? Min-Woo Lee, Max Homa, Tiger Woods playing a practice round today on Tuesday. So
you haven't seen the video of Min-Woo
take my
Lee
money.
If you haven't seen Min-Woo Lee with the squirrel, it's quite hilarious. One of my first bets I placed was him top 30, but I don't know about that. Right?
I think when it comes to Min-Woo, I saw him. Reid, I think we were talking about how I'm going to call the Scottish Open, Genesis Scottish Open, for the third straight year in the middle of the night this year. Yeah. And I got to cover a lot of Min-Woo Lee over the last couple of years, and just seeing, got a little taste on the DP World Tour side of what he was doing. And when he came to the PGA Tour this year, I said, this guy's going to win. I don't know when it's going to come. We saw it at the Players last year. He's going to win. I'm not sure where. And as I've watched him this year, you wonder how consistent his play can be. And especially at a place like Pinehurst, where you're going to be tested. And he's another escape artist. We're talking about Spieth. We're talking about Theegala. We're talking about Min-Woo Lee. And sometimes in these treacherous tests, when you're in the trenches and you have to do it hole after hole after hole, that's why a guy like Scottie succeeds so much, to be able to play consistently. So this is not the spot that I'm looking at Min-Woo Lee. I'm looking at Min-Woo Lee on a non-signature PGA Tour week, where Min-Woo just goes 24 under, balls out, and gets his first PGA Tour win. And then I think we can talk more about his major performance. I think maybe a place like Augusta that feels like a little bit more of a ballpark that he can stay into lends better for him than Pinehurst. So I'm not putting out the fire of this cook right here, but I just don't see it this week. Stephie, what about you?
I think he's played really well. Like, he's had 4 straight top 30s. He stopped hemorrhaging strokes on approach. That was absolutely destroying him for a little bit there. I don't hate it. I think in that range, it would be someone that I would be going to click. I won't have a lot of these long shots. I'd rather play, the placement markets than, I'll waste my money on ways than a lot of these like longer shot guys. But he's someone that's so easy to root for. His number usually gets bet down quite a bit because he's a popular face. Let Minwoo cook and everyone loves him. You see that with these guys that have become, fan favorites, especially when you get a lot of like more casual bettors coming in, to these majors and actually betting.
Before Reid says anything, because I feel like I'll get ahead of this, he's going to say perhaps that Minwoo was T5 last year at the U.S. Open, which I'll say I don't think LACC is a good barometer of Pinehurst or a good barometer of a lot of top-level U.S. Open courses.
Wow.
But I will say this, 8 cuts made in 11 major starts, 5 top 25s and 11 major starts. That is rising to the occasion. In terms of, major championships and challenging courses. So I will give you that.
Yeah, so I look at it this way too, is you mentioned you want to see a win first. And this is a good practice in what type of bettor you are, right? You got to figure out what type of, bettor. Like Stephie's like, I don't want to take these long shots outright. I'd rather go to the top 5 of the placement market, which is perfectly fine. She knows what's more comfortable, where her dollars are going to be allocated. You're like, I want to see the win first. You're more like, I want to see it before I believe it. But I will say this, right, is if and when he wins, because he will at some point, then you're going to start to see these numbers closer to the 35s and the 40s. And then you're going to see him by the JTs, right? The Fleetwoods, the Hidekis, Homa is going to be there too, right? You're going to start to say, and then you're like, there's no way at a major I'm going to bet someone like Minwoo over a proven vet like Homa, who's done it time and time. To your point, right? That's a type of dynamic, or that's a dynamic that you have. I'd rather see it. I look at it this way too, is that it's like a beach ball underwater for these guys who are really like ultra talented, like a Minwoo, like a Sahith. When that thing bursts through the water, these numbers, you're going to start to see it. We saw it with Scottie. I mean, Scottie was 30-1 last time, like at Waste Management, when he beat Cantlay in a playoff. And then all of a sudden it was off to the races. And we're never, ever, ever going to see, a 20-1, not even a 10, like a 12-1 on Scottie, unless something really bad happens to where he really falls off. We're just not going to see it again, right? And that's the problem, is that when these guys who have so much talent finally prove it, then especially these markets, they'll say, fan favorite, great on social media, like Stephie was saying, everybody loves him. Sahith really should probably be closer to like 100 because of or not 100, like 90 or 80 because of how he's playing in this field, but he's popular. This is a Xander effect. Everybody loves betting these guys. And so those numbers are going to go down, and especially if he wins, right? So now you got to play that math and that arithmetic of, is it value pre-tournament where I'm getting him where I think he should be Minwoo at like 50 to 60, right? Kind of where Cantlay is, but he's at 80 or 90. That to me is value, and I'd rather get it before he wins and then say, okay, now he wins and maybe he tweaks some things or his schedule gets crazy. Now I'm going to bet against him because everybody wants to bet him. Maybe there's head-to-head matchups where I get plus money on like a Connors, for instance, against Minwoo, where Connors is much more fit for that course. That's how I like to play those, as opposed to wait till he wins and then see him at like 35, 40-1 and just not going to bet around that number, especially if like a Rom's at like 25 or 30 in that field.
I think it's a good point. How many times are we going to see Ludwig Oberg at 22-1 is probably a question long term. We talk a lot about Minwoo on DraftKings plus 7,000. To win plus 1,200, to top 5 plus 550, to top 10. Cantlay's at plus 5,500 right now on DraftKings. I think that's a great example of that difference between Cantlay and Minwoo should be bigger in my mind. I know Cantlay hasn't had the major success, but you talk about the consistency in the player that he is. That's surprising to me to see that. I want to give some of my value plays that I had down. I was looking at FanDuel this morning. Sam Burns at plus 7,500. Did not have a good start to the season. Has been playing much better. 3 top 15s in his last 4 starts. I think that's simply good value. I don't know if he has. We talked a lot at the top about the mental game. I don't know if he has it to be in these majors yet, but that's too much value for too talented of a player. I do have Corey Connors at plus 9,000 here because of a lot of what we talked about. Ball striking, ball striking, ball striking. He was the low Canadian a couple weeks ago at the RBC Canadian Open, so maybe rounding into form. There's a little wrinkle here. Adam Hadwin had a great week last week. This is the last week for guys to get into the Olympics, and the Olympics matters for Corey Connors. So I understand I'm giving winners odds, but there's a lot of Nick Taylor and Adam Hadwin are in that spot right now. Only 2 Canadians. So just something to think about, not just Canadians, but a lot when you look at Australians, when you look at South Africans, when you look at the Koreans, the margin for being one of those 2 players could get interesting, especially for top 10s, top 25s as the week goes on. I have 2 sleepers down the board. I feel like I give this guy as a sleeper every week. Akshay Bhatia is plus 20,000 to win. Not saying he's going to win, but in terms of, again, if you want to go look at those top 10s, top 20 markets for Akshay, Carolina guy, has played, this area of the country is his area of the country. And what he's, just been able to do from a ball striking perspective, his putting has improved dramatically this year. He's now a 2-time PGA Tour winner. Those odds seem crazy. And then if those odds are crazy, JT Poston is plus 25,000. Another bit of a home game model. I know Tron Carter likes to call him the pound for pound best player on the PGA Tour. And I had JT Poston at the beginning of this year as my 12th man on the U.S. President's Cup team. And I still think that there is a lot of talent sitting there in JT Poston to have. This is when he gets hot, right around this time in the summer. You think about that John Deere Classic a couple of years ago. You look at some of his finishes. So I think JT Poston is a sleeper. I'm just going to go right into my first round leader here also, and I want to hear yours. Obviously, this is always a little bit of a crapshoot, this bet, but I have Tommy Fleetwood plus 4,500. You want to talk about a guy who usually it's either the first round or the last round. He comes out and does his thing. I got Tommy out of the gate. Stephie, who do you have?
I have yet to place a first round leader bet. Xander feels like someone that makes sense. Again, those odds are not long enough for me to do that. Sam Burns, I think, piques my interest. Outside of that, listen, I get burned every week with these first round leaders. It's not my forte. I will tell you that much. It is not pretty.
It's just lottery tickets.
It's a guessing game in a lot of ways, and we get jaded, right? We see a guy goes out and shoots 7 under in the first round. Yeah. You're like, he's going to win. And, you don't think about that when a guy shoots 7 under in the third round and, made the cut on the number or something like that. Reid, do you have any thoughts on a first round leader?
This is my, when you go out and you work out the day before and, you're doing here's the analogy. You work out the day of and you're like, your friends call you oh, we should go out. And you're like, I really want to stay in. I got a good workout in. I don't want to ruin myself. And then you're like, okay, just one. And then 10 drinks later, you're like, shoot, man, and then you go to Jack in the Box or some random place and you just feel it the next day. That's what me first round leaders like, because I don't want to do it. I really don't want to go out for that drink, but then I make 10 first round leader bets because I can't help myself. Yeah. So yes, Jeff, I am going out tonight via first round leader bets. Aaron Rye will always make the card on the FRLs.
Always.
Rye Bread is a guy that is just a first round leader machine. And the reason why is he just goes after pins. He does not give what. He just flies after pins. So give me Aaron Rye. He's 100. He's 100 to 1, 10 plus 10,000. Absolutely love it. If ever you get Rye triple digits first round leader at any tournament, take it. In my opinion, that's been my philosophy. It's happened once over the last 10. That's all you need, right? Especially when it's at that number. Xander is always there. Here's another guy that you just might want to do a little salt-based sprinkle. A little Cam Davis.
Okay.
Just beat his idol in that playoff in the U.S. Open qualifier, Adam Scott. I don't hate it.
Talk about these courses. They look so much like the Australian PGA, Australian Masters. You talk about all the courses that they play down there. It looks like Pinehurst looks very similar to those, where it's going to be a lot of runoff areas. You can run the ball up the greens if it's potentially where the pin is. And so again, these are all random, right? And it's weird to see Tiger buy Davis Thompson first round leader bets, but Davis Thompson is a guy too. We talked about Akshay and value, and we
Yeah.
talk about guys who are extremely talented. Davis Thompson is one of those players who you're going to want to buy stock in at some point, maybe later
Yeah.
this year, maybe during the fall swing. He's going to be one of those players that we're going to be talking about quite a bit. So if you want to do a little sprinkle on him, you can, but I'd rather stick to rye bread first. I'm gonna do a little Cam Davis too as well. So I'm going really deep, and that's what I do with first round leaders. Like I try to it's a lottery ticket.
Get
so
some value.
Why not just go? Just go after.
I mean, Davis Thompson is he's the next generation of the Russell Henley, Chris Kirk, Brendan Todd, Georgia Factory of like, how did this guy become a 2 or 3 time PGA Tour winner eventually?
And like
that's going to happen.
With the hat,
yeah,
just put the hair back, Davis. I don't know how guys wear like the hat with the hair down and not. Anyway,
it's a fair point. If you told me one PGA Tour player was an AI and I had to figure out who it was, I'd probably say Aaron Rai. For those that haven't exactly watched Aaron Rai play, the most technical player on the PGA Tour. 2 gloves, iron covers, walks up to everything with the same routine. Like kind of Rafa Nadal-esque, the way that he plays golf. It's something that I couldn't do. I watch him and I go, well, I couldn't be that consistent with my preparation, but he does an outstanding job with that. I want to get to maybe some top 10s down the board, Stephie, that we're not looking at some players that you're saying, look, I know this player won't win, but there's some great value here for a top 10.
Yeah, you're braver than me with Morikawa. I cannot get there as much as I want to. My heart was broken, so I did bet him top 10 because I do want a piece of it. I'm a little nervous with Morikawa he seemed to get a little emotional last week, and I don't love that with this course because it's going to make you emotional. So if you can't keep it together, it's not going to go well. And he brought up Scottie during his presser, so I don't know if there's a little mental thing going on there with Morikawa right now that makes me a little bit nervous. He's playing fantastic golf. I brought up Sepp Straka. I think his, the driving accuracy, I said it a million times, only second to Morikawa right now. His good drive percentage is off the charts. His majors, he does well or doesn't do well. He's done well at a Ross Design, but I think him coming into good form going into this week, I could totally see him getting that top 10. I'm betting Finau again. It's impossible to not. He's another one. Can't quit. Want to be there when it happens, so I won't bet him outright, but I will bet him like a top 10.
I hope everything's good. It sounds like we got the lawnmower or something outside my new apartment right now. So I'm hoping all my technology is working well enough. This is, part of the nature of doing something like this. But Reid, how about your top 10s?
Yeah, I love that. Like you got to be there when Finau does it. I've bet Finau in every tournament that he hasn't won. So I'll just leave that nugget there. So it's been and he's my favorite golfer. So like get a piece of Finau any which way you can. But for top 10s, so I got a few guys that I like quite a bit that I don't think they're gonna win, but they're gonna be close or maybe back to our top 10. Alex Noren is one of those guys. He's been playing great golf. He's at plus 700, so 7-1 right now for a top 10. You talk about how well you can play these type of courses, Kiowa. You talk about tough tracks down in Florida. Noren's always been that guy for me. And again, he's been playing some great golf. I think he had some ungodly streak of made cuts until was it like the RBC or something, or rounds under par. I forget which one it was. I think he had both of those streaks that were pretty long lasting. So give me Noren there. Ryan Fox, we saw him at RBC Canadian that he could have easily won that. Just had some bad luck. I think it was on Sunday, early Sunday, maybe late Saturday. I can't remember. But Foxy's right there. He's at 10-1 for top 10. And Harris English, he's another one too, also at 10-1. These guys always perform well in these type of tournaments. This is not about a bomb and gouge U.S. Open, right? It really is. Even though it's long, it really isn't, right? It's not like the LACC, like you mentioned, the Oakmonts, the Bethpage Blacks. This is more of a technician's golf course, and I'm leaning a lot more towards these guys, the Europeans, or someone like, or like not Ryan Fox, obviously is a Kiwi, but like Noren, Fox, and then English, who have experience playing these type of courses, playing on the DP World Tour, where the things are different, right? American golf is very different than what we see on DP. They see so many different types of golf courses. And so guys like Noren and Fox who have that in their back pocket maybe feel a little more comfortable if they get in a bad spot. Love them for a top 10, but I don't know if they have the what it takes, especially with guys that we've already talked about, to win.
Alex Noren got that start at the Memorial, got a sponsors exemption. A lot of people were like, wait, what? With all due respect to Alex Noren, but you're right, partly because of the success that he has had. 13 cuts made in 14 events this year, 10 top 25s, just 2 top 10s. The latest of those came at the CJ Cup. Byron Nelson. I don't know if TPC Craig Ranch will convert to Pinehurst number 2, but that does show what Alex Noren's been doing. And when I look at top 10s, I'll tell you, I have a guy kind of like what you were saying, the consistency this year. But this is the guy who has the most cuts made on the PGA Tour this year. He's 16 for 16. Do you guys know do either of you know who I'm talking about?
I'd be lying if I guessed.
Most cuts made, 16 for 16.
16 for 16 this year.
Is it like, it's probably some randos that feel like a Brendan Todd I feel like something.
He'd feel disrespected if you said that. Mark Hubbard is 16 for 16 this year. He was in one of the last groups at the PGA on Saturday, kind of faded T26 plus 2,200 for a long shot top 10. Here's a guy who you almost know is going to make the cut. Throw him into the mix. Jake Knapp is plus 2,500 for a top 10. Had such an outstanding first half of the season. He's a guy that hits it a mile, fits the profile of the ball striking needed here. And then some of the more chalky plays. How about Keegan Bradley? There's been a lot of images being shared of his red and white outfit for the 2014 U.S. Open at Pinehurst, but he did perform out there. He seems to rise to the occasion for major championships and for U.S. Opens. He's a plus 600 for a top 10. And how about let's segue into a conversation about this guy. Viktor Hovland is plus 200 for a top 10. I think a year ago you would have said, that might actually be some value. Viktor Hovland's just notching him up right now. I know that those are low odds right now, plus 200, but Viktor Hovland seems to be rounding into form. So if we could talk about a couple players here, how are you, Stephie, we'll start with you. How are you looking at Viktor Hovland in a different place than maybe he would have been 8 months ago?
Yeah, it's funny you bring him up because he's another one. I know we were talking before we jumped on. Like, I feel like I'm going to regret not having any action on Hovland because I think the way that he's playing, he's also very long and precise off the tee, which is something I've mentioned 400 times by now. But I think like Hovland, he made that change back with his coach, whenever that was, and you kind of saw things start turn around. So I don't know if I guess I love the fit here for Hovland, but I won't be surprised if he finishes like he has a good finish. He can be in contention any week.
Reid, how do you feel about Vic?
Like he went back. He thought the grass was greener on the other side, and he went back to his ex. Man, you're just like, I need you. But so pre-Xander winning PGA, right? This was always my gripe with Xander, is that he was up at these numbers when DJ was on tour, when Brooks was on tour. He was shorter than those guys in these events. And I'm like, he's won like the no-cut events. Xander's got all the talent in the world, but he hasn't won yet. And especially with all of these guys at the top, I just couldn't make my way there. So you kind of see where I'm going with this, is that like Vic now, look, he's won the FedEx. He's solid, right? But around those numbers at 20-1, where he's at now, I can't find myself. And I'm going to be like Stephie too. I'm gonna be like, that was stupid, because now he's like 6-1 to win. I could have got 3 times the odds on that, but I just can't bring myself to do it, because I look at guys around that and I think Ludwig Åberg is there at 25 or 22, whatever he is. Hideki's at 40. Mm-hmm. It is analysis paralysis in a sense of Vic is so good. But the thing that scares me a little bit is that if and or when he gets into trouble, especially around these greens, you're going to see a lot of putters come out, right? Can he find himself in those positions where it's not going to be like it's not going to compound the issue? He can hit the ball as far. His ball striking is fantastic. He plays well in tough conditions. But is that enough to be done over someone like Morikawa? like, I don't know, right? In my mind, I think Morikawa is, especially with what you guys have said, is like 1.5 times more likely to win over Victor here. And the odds just don't say that, right? So I'm going to go away from it. Love him. Can't wait till he wins. But he's just not someone that I bet at less than like 25, 30 to 1. So I probably won't bet him until he wins, and then it'll be sad day for Reid.
Victor missed the cut at the Masters, and since then, T24 at Wells Fargo, third at the PGA Championship, T15 at the Memorial last week with a 77-75 weekend. And he has also finished
so good.
Top 5 in 4 of his last 7 major starts. So something to maybe think about with Vic. I want to ask about a couple other players. Xander, he did it. He rocked him. Got the PGA Championship. Reid, I'll go back to you. Any reason is there reason to stick with Xander? I know his odds obviously get a little too chalky right now, plus 1,000 or plus 900, wherever you may look right now, or where am I looking here? Plus a lot of plus 1,000s right now for Xander.
Right on there. Yeah, look, I mean, you could claim that, like, right now, sans Rahm, right, not being on tour, like, Xander is clearly the second best golfer. By even ranking, I think he's number 2 in the world. So yeah, I mean, that number warrants it. I think Scottie is at plus 280 on FanDuel, so he's now even shorter than 3 to 1. So yeah, but again, you have to think about, right, and we see this all the time. If you're not Tiger, if you're not Scottie, who are like just unbelievably talented and like so ultra focused and so good, or maybe to the point like Scottie, like everything is just so right in this world right now that he's just on cloud 9. Everything is house money. Xander is coming off of an absolute high, right? This is years. We've been saying it. He's been hearing it. He's been saying it to himself. It has been years coming for this. And now, like, there's no value in my mind. Could he do it? Absolutely. But again, right, this goes back to my original point, like, good bet, bad value, in my opinion. So I'm going to stay off of it. Love it. Love that Xander's win. I'm always a fan when an Asian wins on tour. It's just like, that's my people. So I'm like, sometimes I'll have like all Asian cards and like not bet like the Asian market. But like, it's so nice to see him win. I think he's going to ride that, and he should, right? It's like if you're not the Chiefs, you're not going back to back in the Super Bowl. If you're not the Patriots and you're crazy, you're not building a dynasty. Xander really doesn't have that right now for me. He's not like the Tiger Scottie, talk. So I'm going to say no, but absolutely love it. Absolutely love him.
Should we not believe in the Xander dynasty, Stephie?
I think it's really hard to believe. I was saying this earlier to someone, like, is he gonna win another one after for so long? Like, all we were saying was, when's he gonna get it done? Like, he got it done, and now, I don't think it's gonna come this quickly. I think, for a while there, I had to stop hurting my own feelings, and I was just betting him top 10, rolling it over there. I think, like, if he could finish top 5, but that's what Xander always does, right? Like, we know he does that. He leads the tour in 3-putt avoidance, which I think could really help him here at a course like this. Good demeanor. He has like 7 finishes, like top 14 or better. He's playing fantastic golf. But again, yeah, I don't know. It doesn't sit well thinking that he's gonna get another one here.
Xander Schauffele in U.S. Opens. Remember, his U.S. Open career, he's started 7 times: T5, T6, T3, 5th, T7, T14, T10.
So he sucks at the U.S. Open then.
7 top 15s in 7 starts. So
all I hear is no wins. No
that's
wins.
But maybe but it's fair. But maybe for a top 10, even as chalky as he is, something to think about. Stephie, let's get in.
Sorry, really, really quickly, but this is before he's won one, right? And I'm not saying that's like an automatic thing, but something mentally happens, right? When you win, and it's the most recent one. So I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, it's hard to go against. I mean, Xander's awesome. Anyway.
I think Scottie missed the cut. Did he miss the cut at the PGA right after he won? Right after he won his first Masters in 2022, I think it was.
I can't remember, but that sounds familiar.
It was right.
You suck, Scottie.
Yeah, like what was this guy doing? Yeah, he missed the cut at the PGA right after. So it is something to think about. But let's talk Bryson, Steffi, because probably the biggest enigma in golf, if not sports, right now.
Yeah.
I keep telling people it has nothing to do with my feelings on live. We're going to get to John Rahm in a second, but he's just not playing enough golf, and John
Yeah.
Rahm just isn't to me. He's not in rhythm enough to play. But Bryson seems to have figured it out. Whether it's filling his time, with YouTube golf or whatever it is, it took him a couple of years on live. Feels like he's in rhythm. Coming off the runner-up finish at the PGA Championship, we can only really judge him on majors right now because even like this last week in Houston, like you said with Cam Smith, it's we don't know what's really going on when these guys
Yeah.
show up for a live event. So how do we judge Bryson? How do we judge Bryson at Pinehurst #2?
Yeah, I know I talked about it a little bit earlier, but I still think Bryson, like I kind of wish I bet him earlier outright. He probably will be like an ad. I have a hard time betting some of these guys, as I've alluded to, as far as my outrights go. But like a top 10 for Bryson at like plus 225 or whatever it's sitting at right now, uh, like this guy is so good off the tee, and if he just finds fairways, he's going to put himself into a position to just be in a really good spot. Saw what he did at Valhalla. I think too that the YouTube thing is interesting because I think there's a piece of it where what did he went out and bought, like I think Target or Walmart, like a junior kids club set, and played a course with it, and it's like it sounds crazy, but I don't like. I think there's some type of like strategy there where like I think he's still playing in these situations as much as some of these guys barely play on live. But I don't know. I'm like pretty in on Bryson. Like I think he's doing his thing and he's found a groove. Is Bryson gonna win? I don't know, but like top 10 Bryson sounds very nice for the ball streaking, like as of late too, that we've seen from him. But especially like off the tee, like his good drive percentage is crazy.
They're back on the Northeast Bar Mitzvah circuit when I was a young seventh grader. There was this guy named Crazy Tyrone that used to show up and play people in ping pong with like a block, or like someone would give him a piece of bread and he would just beat people in ping pong. I feel like that's essentially what Bryson has become with golf. Like give him a junior set, give him a Fisher Price set, and he'll go out and play golf with it. But I do think, to your point, it's hard not to. Bryson is a U.S. Open winner. He has played some of his best golf on challenging courses, plus 2,000 to win right now. It's sixth on the board, tied with Brooks Koepka for lowest odds among live golfers. Bryson's at plus 400 to top 5, plus 210 to top 10. So moving on up, you said plus 225 a moment ago, Stephie. But Reid, I don't know. Was Valhalla a birdie fest for Bryson? Can he play to that wing foot ability at Pinehurst?
I think so. I've always been a fan of Bryson. Like Bryson, so I've worked with him a couple of times. I've met him, interviewed him, and he loves golf. Like
he was a DraftKings guy back in the day.
Yeah, and so to Steffi's point, yeah, it's all like when he goes on his YouTube stuff and he buys the kids clubs and he stripes it down the fairway like 230 yards with like a mini driver. Like he's a guy that just loves the game and he loves to dissect it. He loves to help, this, that, and the other. Like you can bash his reasons of going and like his rationale for live all you want, right? That is your prerogative. But when we're talking about golf, he's a guy that has figured it out. So when you think about that, we talked about it at the top, right? You need strategy, you need to be patient, you need experience, and Bryson's a major winner. Like he has won this tournament before. Granted, he just bombed it as far as he could in his, when he gained like 50 pounds. But this is now a course that you need more strategy, and he's matured, he's grown up in a lot of ways, and that really has translated to major tournaments. He's the type of player that he's like this is going to sound really weird. I'm not comparing Tom Brady to Bryson whatsoever, but in the sense of Tom Brady doesn't need the offseason, right? Some of these guys don't need the 4 rounds in competitive PGA golf who are on live, right? Cam Smith, Dustin Johnson maybe need it. DJ's also like 100-1, by the way. They definitely need it. But someone like Bryson has proven like now this year, the last 2 majors, he doesn't need it, right? So absolutely, if you want him, he's at plus 2,000. Don't mind at all. Love Bryson quite a bit, and would not be surprised if, again, he's in the top 10, top 5 in contention on the weekend.
A guy who I do think needs the work and hasn't got it is Jon Rahm, who obviously at the beginning of the year was sitting on his couch saying he wished he could have defended some of those titles on the West Coast swing. Just running some of the math, 8 live events, right? That's 3 rounds. Jon Rahm played a round and a half in the last live event, so that's 22 and a half rounds, plus the Masters, 26 and a half, missed the cut at the PGA. So he's played 28 and a half competitive rounds. You look at a player like Scottie Scheffler, 13 starts this year, 4 rounds, only played 3 rounds at Pebble Beach. That's 51 competitive rounds this year. So just to understand a little bit of the difference between the body of work being put in by live players and by PGA Tour players, that's 22 rounds separating how many competitive rounds Jon Rahm and Scottie Scheffler have played this year. Now, maybe that doesn't matter for Brooks Koepka and Bryson DeChambeau like you're talking about. I still think it matters for Rahm, and we have to talk about him. He's still sitting there on the board at plus 2,500. The public is not necessarily shying away from Rahm. Those are not the Masters odds that he had, Reid. We'll start with you, but how do we judge Jon Rahm with his foot, with his game, with everything?
Yeah, it's like so you're saying he's Trey Lance, basically. That's what you're saying. Rahm is Trey Lance. No, he's not Trey Lance.
That's tough.
That's not. He needs competitive downs. He needs years in college. Is that what you're saying? He hasn't got the reps. Look, peg leg Rahm, poor guy. He's got an infection in between his toes. It feels like buyer's remorse for Rahm, which is weird to say when you got 9 figures in the bank account. But it kind of feels that way for him. I think he thought he had more needle movement than he probably did or does. But those odds you mentioned, 25 to 1 plus 2,500, Jeff, they just went up. They're at plus 2,800 now. So now he's getting closer to that 3 number. And whatever psychology you want to talk about, like if someone's at 8, like Victor's at 18 to 1, Bryson's at 20 to 1, I'm like, oh, Bryson's way more value because he's got a 2 in front of his name. Like if Rahm gets him like plus 3,000 Wednesday night, plus 3,200, I mean, when have we seen that with Rahm ever? Right? This is like the big time, like in DFS, or like you're watching, like if you're betting on football, especially DFS though, you see like a Q by their name, right? And their roster, their ownership, it is not what it should be because everyone's like, oh, he's injured, so I'm not going to play him. Then he goes out, 5 catches, $185, 2 tuds, and he's like the number 1 guy on the team, right? That's kind of how I'm feeling with Rahm, is that he withdrew. He wasn't there for the first 2 days in the practice round. He's in a walking boot, but he's still there, right? Like, so if that number starts to creep up, guys, I might like find some coins in between the couch, or sell some Bitcoin and get after Rahm, because I have yet to. I can't remember when I've seen a 3 in front of his name in the last 3 or 4 years.
Is this Jon Rahm's flu game is essentially what we're talking about here. Stephie, any thoughts on the, he looks like he's going to the beach right now in some of the pictures that I'm looking at Pinehurst.
Yeah, I've never been a Jon Rahm girly, to be completely honest. Like his aura is not my vibe at all. I think that there is, though, like to your point, Reid, like there will be value. The value is coming on Rahm too, because there's going to be a number where it's like, okay, now we're talking ridiculous. Could he find his way into a DFS lineup of mine? Maybe. I don't know. I kind of, I call them the tantrum boys, but like Rahm and Hatton, for me, this is like not the course to like lose your cool at. So I don't know, like to me, they're just kind of having to like stayaways, especially for, talking about needing this patience. I don't know how much of that is there. And I think again, like Rahm's maybe I'm doing too much about strokes gain loss from mental stuff, but I think there's like a little mental aspect going on there. Like he did think there was going to be some changes going over to live a little bit quicker than probably is occurring for him.
Oh, I kind of love now it's going to be must-see TV when Rahm rolls into a weed or something in the waist area and just can't believe his first lie on like the 3rd hole. How unlucky he got. Like, I'm going to have to see this now. I want to talk about just because I love the region markets. I'm looking at FanDuel right now. Top European, Rahm is now 4th at plus 800, Rory plus 360, Hovland plus 600, Ludwig plus 650, Fleetwood plus 1,000, Fitzpatrick plus 1,200. A lot going on here. Stephie, any thoughts on Europe?
Wow, those are actually some very interesting numbers. I didn't get a chance to look at it yet.
Bob McIntyre plus 2,800.
I don't know about that, but I don't know. Maybe that's the way I find my way into Hovland. I'm not sure. I'll have to. Those I'm not positive about. I know for as far as Canadian goes, I'm going to take Corey Connors there, but I have not looked at. I haven't thought too much about that. They're definitely interesting numbers, though.
Canadian Corey Connors plus 250, Hadwin Hughes plus 400, Pendrith plus 500, Svensson plus 600, Nick Taylor plus 700. That jumps out to me down the Canadian board. Reid, any thoughts on those two markets?
Nick Taylor has been playing awful golf this year.
He has.
People
not this year. We're going to see what's going to happen with the President's Cup, because right now he's in the top 6 for the President's Cup. So that's going to be interesting to watch as things go on.
He's probably going to make it just because of what he did at last year's Canadian Open, right? He's got a hero in that country. Look at the top Canadians. I'm always a fan of Mac Hughes. I think when you talk about what you need between the ears, he's one guy that will just grind it out. But I'm with Stephie. I don't do these. I don't play top regions quite a lot. The reason being is because, look, if you're going top, you think these guys can win, right? If they're the top in their region, or maybe not top Canadian, top European, because obviously those guys are, they're well within the top 25, top 50 in the world. So maybe it's in these top South African. If that's one, then Ryan Fox comes to mind. Seabez comes to mind with some value. Right. But the other ones, you need to find a top European. If you're going to Victor Hovland, then you think he's going to win. Well, then why not just bet him to win as opposed to top in the market, or parlay that with something else, right? Or do it with a matchup as opposed to trying to be the top in that region. So if you're doing these big markets, top European, top Canadian, even top Asian market, then just go to in my mind, the top outrights. Right, because then that means there's value there.
Hold that thought. Bezuidenhout, by the way, plus 175. Dean Burmester is actually the top African on FanDuel at plus 150. You talk about Ryan Fox. You want to go take a look at top Oceania. Ryan Fox actually 5th on the board at plus 650. Behind Adam Scott at plus 450. That's interesting. Jason Day plus 400. Minwoo plus 340. Cam Smith plus 240. I do want to ask you, Reid, because you brought it up and you said that sometimes you put together just an entire ticket of just Asians. Top Asians, this is based on Asian flags. Hideki Matsuyama plus 270. Ben On, Sung Jae Im plus 400. Tom Kim plus 450. Siwoo at plus 500.
If you don't do Siwoo at some point in your life, please experience a Siwoo bet. Because it is fantastic. It is bipolar. It is the best in the world. It is the worst. It's like a tale of two cities with a Siwoo Kim bet. So look, if I'm going top Asian, right, it's hard. And this is where it could get a little different. I think Hideki is a great bet, just outright. If you want to go that route, I think he's plus 5,000. But if you don't think he's going to play well, then these are the type of markets, right, that you could try and potentially get after. Benny On. This guy was on the Korn Ferry Tour last year. And he's just been playing so well. And you do not think, when you think Benny On, major championship, Pinehurst #2, you need to putt well. God, I want to stay away from Benny On. But at the same time, his strokes of what he's doing, tee to green, ball striking, it's been fantastic. So if there's any one of those guys, and Sanjay, we talk about the Cantlays of the world, right? Of being these blue chips that are just sliding in value. Sanjay is that player to a T. He's the epitome of someone who's just not playing well, but at some point it's going to click. He's probably working something on it with his swing. Mentally, he's probably working on something. Who knows what's going on in his personal life, but he's been drifting. So Sanjay, I'm going to have to really consider getting topped off a Sanjay ledge come Wednesday night, because he's in the triple digits outright. So Sanjay would be my guy.
He can't. He's got a permanent home now. That's probably the issue. He's got to be. Sanjay's got to be on the road. That's probably the best value you're going to get for Sung Jae Im is probably right around now. So I agree with you there, Reid. Before I let you two go, what am I missing? What are your obscure picks down the board that whether it be a prop or whether it be something that we need to be aware of that you're willing to share with us, Stephie?
These are just very like silly. Please do not.
That's what we want.
bet
That's what
them
we want.
Don't bet them with me, but I do love to find guys that no one's rooting for. So I have placed a bet on Sam Bennett to come top 40. We've only seen him one time play a tour event this year. Had 2 really bad rounds. It was like T72 at the Texas Children's Open. But he had a T16 at the Masters, and he's played the U.S. Open twice. Didn't quite get the top 40, but 2 top 50s. Not that that's going to help us much. And then Justin Lauer, I don't know if anyone heard him talking about his dad. He lost his dad when he was 15, and it was very emotional, talking about how just being able to play that day would be really cool. And yeah, top 40 is like plus 260. So, and it looks like my camera went out, which is lovely.
We're getting for those. Yeah, for those listening, we're getting a change the battery pack image for Stephie as we're just
like
about
Stephie
to finish
shut
up.
Down. Just like
Sam Bennett plus 350, Justin Lauer plus 280 for top 40s. Reid, Justin Lauer, an alum of Eyes on Golf. You're now a part of his, the esteemed group that includes him. What do you got down the board? Crazy stuff. What am I missing?
That is the esteemed group, man. This is where I wanted to be. So this is it. I don't want to do anything else. This is the last piece of content I'm ever producing. How about make/miss the cut, guys? Okay. Get like a 10 player. It's like all the guys that we talked about. Go back and write down all the players that we talked about. And maybe you're not going to do the outrights on guys like Min Woo and Ryan Fox and Harris English, but we all like them, right? To do well at some point, top 10, top 20, whatever. That means you're going to make the cut. So get like a 12, like a 10 to 12. And I do not advocate parlays at all, right? Like that is not what I do. I think they're like a fool's errand. Like I've been behind the curtain. Like I know how this sausage gets made, right? The parlays are, they attract you, right? You get these content creators that I hit this, I got this parlay that's going to pay me out $1 million. I'm going to cash out at 250. That like never happens. So, but in these make to miss parlays, make to miss cuts, all the guys that we talked about, right? There's so many guys in the field. All they got to do is make the cut. That's it, right? And in a place like Pinehurst No. 2, that cut could be like around +5. Who knows? +6, right? I think +5 was at 2014. That was a cut in 2014 here last. So, right, that's one that I like. So take the guys that if you don't want to bet all of them outright, top 5, top 10, anything, take those guys and do like a make/miss the cut parlay. And I'm always going to go make the cut.
Yeah. I like some of those, looking at some of those made cut, miscut sort of bets. I'm just going to throw in Zach Blair at a T40, sort of a little bit of some of those guys that Stephie was talking about. Zach Blair's at +400 for a T40, finished T40 on the nose 10 years ago here in 2014 and just made the cut at the PGA, finished, I believe, T53 at the PGA. So playing some better golf right now. Reid, I'm going to let you guys go. I know we held on to Stephie as long as we could. I think we can still hear her. Stephie, we can still hear you, right?
I'm trying to get my camera back on. It is not working, but I guess that's what...
Stephie had enough. She's like, these two clowns.
Yeah. She's like, you guys went over
I do
over
like
an
Zach
hour.
Blair, though. I do tend to bet on him often and get my feelings hurt, but...
Well, I appreciate that. For Reid and Stephie, really appreciate both you coming, doing this with me this week. Stephie, where can the people find you?
Find me across socials at Stephie Smells with 3 L's, and then my show on YouTube. Appreciate it. Hopefully we all are in the green at the end of this weekend.
And Reid, where can people find you?
You can find me behind the camera of everything that Jeff Eisenband does on and off the golf course. You can find me on Twitter at Reid Fowler X, whoever what you call it, at Reid Fowler. PGA Tour Live. Obviously, we're chugging along. We got some cool things coming up at the next year, or even at the end of this year. Right? There's some really cool new developments that we can't talk about just yet that could be coming down the pike for PGA Tour Live and ESPN Plus. So as always, and then just hit me up, find me anywhere. And I'm probably gonna be on a golf course trying to beat Jeff as much as possible. Because everything on the old socials tells me that Jeff's a scratch golfer.
Yeah, right. You can track Reid down, find him somewhere roaming Western Connecticut. Sorry to put your business out there, Reid.
That's okay.
This has been Eyes on Golf. Thanks so much to both of you being here.
Thanks, bud.
Thanks to Stephie. Thanks to Reid. That was a ton of fun. I did not expect to go that long. They are both experts. They're so good at what they do, so smart. And I really appreciate them taking the time, over an hour, to give you all of your preparation for betting for the U.S. Open. So it's Tuesday. I'm trying to get this out before the end of the day on Tuesday. You'll have all of Wednesday to consult these individuals and hopefully figure out your betting preview for the U.S. Open. Thanks for listening to Eyes on Golf.